Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and pop the hood on the game and kind of give you a little insight of what's going on behind the scenes in the background. So if I break down my UI, you can see I have different components here. Now, the actual title itself is going to be anchored to a hinge, all right, and that's what kind of allows it to rock back and forth. All right, so if I grab the sign, right, and I take the hinge, and I can take the hinge and I could rotate the hinge back and forth on the x-axis, all right, and what this will do is just give a rocking motion to the sign, like so. I would like to break down how I managed to get the sign to look the way it does. There's a couple of layers involved into it. Quite a few layers. I have a normal, I have a blank, I have a couple of textures. Okay, so this one is just gonna, this texture right here, just it literally is just to give it, just kind of, some kind of aesthetics. So it's not just a complete solid color. If you look over here, you'll notice that it is just like just a blob of gray. Okay, so what I did is I took that. This is actually the original sign that I went with. I was trying to get the rocking motion within the shader itself, and the way I did that was kind of round and about. Obviously, it looks kind of upside down, and it is. I actually had to apply the shader upside down and backwards in game in order for it to work properly. But yeah, so I changed around my UVs and I rotated about the axis. The problem was I didn't have any control of exactly where that axis was. And when it came out, it kind of did what I wanted it to do, but I noticed that when I actually physically applied it to an image and rotated the image itself, it just looked a lot better in game. So this is the sign that we have actually implemented in the game itself. As you see, there's several things going on here. In order to, so it's not just a square to kind of get the image to be cut like that. What I did is I took a blank background, and I put it through like a multiplier, and then I stuck it into the clip threshold. Okay, and that's what allows me to get the clipping around so that it only shows so much. Now if I take this and I adjust it, you can see how it changes, and then so it won't be just a complete blob square. I can adjust exactly how much is allowed to draw. Put that back. Now taking this same blob, let's see. All right, so now that determines exactly what can be drawn, and then I took the actual writing, the title, and I kind of just flipped it, reversed it, added some color, and then I added to just a kind of random texture, and it gave me this deal right here. All right, and then I sent that in, and that gives me the color. But if you see here, I am actually using the combination of the two, right? The background overwritten with the lettering, and I made a normal map out of it, and I sent that in. That kind of gives you the depth. All right, so that's a sign. And this is how it comes out. And I'll put it on the image and I'll rotate it. So the buttons, I want to kind of explain the buttons a little bit to you, because they can be rather complicated. If you see here in my hierarchy, I have button 1 REN, button 2 REN, button 3 REN. If you go into there, and then I can kind of focus in on it. So here's all my buttons. Right, here's the 3 buttons right here. And the 3 buttons, what I'm using is Text Mesh Pro. Okay, and that's how I was able to get the fading on the lettering and stuff. So these these are actually, all right, so here's the text, and like, here, let me do this one. All right, so we go here to exit, and you know, I can really make it say anything, you know. And come down here, and of course it dynamically updates the actual tag itself. Go back and make it say exit again. All right, so what that allows me to do is allow me to keep the original buttons, and all I have to do is change the text on these buttons. So I don't need a whole list of buttons that are turning off and turning on and being replaced, and worrying about raycast not being triggered because, you know, one of the buttons are closer, and you know, I don't have to worry about all that. Literally just a text block overlaying an image in the texture of a blank dog tag, and then I put the text over it like so. And then what I do is I record it, take a picture of it with the camera like so, and I take whatever that camera picks up, take the image right here, and I cast it onto a render image, and this is my render image right here. And just like you would think, whatever, right, and this changes as well. And so as I do my transitions with the UI, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just sending a string to the text block and writing it on top of this image, recording that image, putting it on a render texture. And the reason I do that is because inside the shader, right, inside the shader, I actually take that very render texture that I created, and I use that as the texture in the shader. Okay, and the reason being is because the reason I do that, instead of just putting the text on the button itself, is because if you look, at these buttons, you see that the text, you know, it has depth to it. You know, the text isn't just ink on the dog tag. It has you know, it has some dimension to it, because, you know, the lettering is supposed to be stamped into the metal. So when you change it, you know, I want the lettering to be stamped into the metal. Okay. All right, so back to the shader. So that's why I go through this whole process instead of just writing the lettering straight onto the button, because I want the lettering to be part of the shader. So I take the render texture and I feed it through. I actually get a normal from the rendered texture. That's why it's able to change like that. And the kind of same process is what I did with the title sign. I have a blank, to do the clipping. All right, so that only what I want drawn is drawn, and everything else, stays there. It's not just a square; it's actually a shape of a dog tag. And then here, what this is highlighting for when you hover over it. I can control that dynamic through code. Yes. Yeah. So that's all. This highlighting is turned off and on through the code. But when I do click on the button, it does flip, and when it flips, it does rotate. But in order to make it feel like it's coming closer and further away to the camera, what I do is I just change the scale on it, and that kind of gives you a sense of it like coming up towards you. So same thing with, so it's basically the same thing with the actual sign. Let me see here. With the actual window, all I do is, I change the clipping, and as that changes, it kind of fades in and fades out like so. And also the same thing with the labeling. Fades in, fades out, just like that. And that's how I control all of my fades. Now the labeling, as you see, it says music right here. And you probably noticed when we're looking up here that, I have it up here. Well, the labeling is dynamic as well. I use the same principle to change the labeling. And so with that said, that my labels are actually images. They're not actually letters written up there. And when I do that, what that allows me to do is it allows me to add a texture to the actual lettering itself. So I have like a kind of a gold flake texture going on to here when it would have just been yellow. So and then it also allows me to do the fade in, fade out dynamically with the lettering, that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. The same goes for the sliders as well. I can fade them in, fade them out, just like so. Now we go to the next scene. All right, so here's the main gameplay scene. We go take a closer look at the weapon systems to kind of show you what's going on here. Obviously, I have some lighting effects going on right here. I do have another point light right here inside the cockpit because it does get really dark inside the cockpit when you're in first person view. Projectiles are not they're not actually 3D objects. They're actually particles that shoot out. Alright, as you can see, it looks three-dimensional. It looks like a capsule, but it's not. It is a particle system. If I open this up and I show you what's going on in there, what I used was the render mode. I used a mesh capsule, and that basically just kind of gives you the depending on what angle you're looking at it, changes the shape of the actual image, of the actual particle. So getting into the game itself, of course you have you have a time limit, and you have a goal, and then the goal is to kill 10 enemies before the timer runs out. You do that, you win the game. As you see, the enemy flew by, and as you watch it fly, you can see that it will actually bank. So pressing escape gives you a menu, and it's just kind of keeping with what's going on with the first menu, the main menu, kind of trying to keep that same theme going in. Now from here you can either go to the menu and it'll take you back to the menu. All right. And then you start your game, or you could just go ahead and resume, and then it will go ahead and resume. I still have my camera transition for first person and third person view, and of course I use a Bezier curve for that. When you want to go to the menu from inside the cockpit, it actually launches you out of the plane, because it's kind of wonky when the menu pops up while you're inside the plane. And when the plane comes by again, shortcut, that's this little shader I do. As you can see, the next enemy spawns in. Now what I really wanted to do is kind of create like a kind of a cutscene. Now when the enemy is damaged but not blown up, after you hit it, like shoot it like 4 times, start spitting out smoke, and then finally you can go ahead and kill it after that. And of course, I have my targeting system going. Once it gets off screen, it has an arrow indicating exactly where it's at, so you can locate the enemy. When it comes back on screen, it switches to just crosshair, so you can acquire the target, take it from there. Right now I do not have any music going, so we'll go over to the volume settings, throw up some music. And exit options, go back in to the game, and yes, I'm using my dev cheats to kind of speed this up a little bit. Alright, so here we are on the last kill, and we do visual feedback. And it brings you to the title screen as you defeat all the enemies. Thank you for joining me. I'm glad I could walk you through. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to email me and ask away. I'd be more than happy to explain what my thought process was. Or if you have any suggestions, please, again, let me know. Thanks a lot.